Chicago Fire and Chicago Med have time changes tonight you need to know, January 29th. Set your alarms, clocks, and timers, Chiehards. The One Chicago crossover episode is here. Chiehards need no reminder that Wednesday nights on NBC mean new episodes of Chicago Fire, Chicago P.D., and Chicago Med. However, those tuning in for the One Chicago crossover event on January 29th should note an important time swap happening. With a massive fire downtown kicking off this 3-hour epic, airtimes for Chicago Fire and Med are switching. For this week only, One Chicago Wednesdays will kick off with Chicago Fire, followed by Chicago Med, then Chicago P.D. This marks the first crossover event for the Chicagos since 2019, and fans couldn't be more excited to jump into the action. You don't notice when you're going from one episode to the next, Chicago Fire showrunner Andrea Newman said. It's really all one big episode. It's one big movie is what it is. The writers really kept saying, we really wanted to have layers that you just keep peeling back. Surprises that keep coming. They made it together, a 3-hour movie, essentially. Instead of airing in its usual time slot, Chicago Fire will kick off the 3-part crossover at August 7th on NBC. The logline for Fire Season 13, Episode 11. In the Trenches Part 1, reads, Chicago's first responders unite in the wake of a catastrophic gas explosion and fire that threaten a city government building. Herman reluctantly shadows Pascal while Violet, Novak and Dr. Frost take charge of triage efforts on site. Instead of airing in its usual time slot, Chicago Med will occupy the middle slot of September 8th on NBC on January 29th. The logline for the Med episode, Season 10, Episode 11. In the Trenches Part 2, teases. Following the subway tunnel collapse, Ruzek and Kid treat injured passengers and track down the missing offender. Archer and Frost perform a life-saving amputation. Lennox feels the weight of the CPD's hopes as she fights to save one of their own. Chicago PD will air during its usual time slot of October 9th as the conclusion to the 3-part episode. The logline for the PD episode, Season 12, Episode 11. In the Trenches Part 3, reads, with the suspects still at large and conditions worsening underground, first responders race against the clock to reach the trapped victims, while the investigation into the assailants comes into focus. As usual, you can stream the One Chicago crossover episode the day after it airs on Peacock, NBC's streaming service.